Hey, what's up guys? Will here for GSM Arena. The iPhone 16 Pro packs all of Apple's top iPhone features into a relatively compact package. But last year's iPhone 15 Pro was also a fine choice. If you went for the older model to save some cash, what new features would you miss out on? Let's put the iPhone 16 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro head to head and find out. At this point, the iPhone 15 Pro isn't sold in the Apple Store anymore, but if you find one for sale from a third-party retailer, you could save a decent chunk of cash. Of course, the newer model is the more exciting one, bringing all of 2024's new features. The iPhone 16 Pro is a bit taller and wider as it's built around a larger display. It's a little bit heavier as well. Other than that, the two phones look very similar. Both of them have a glass back and a titanium frame. And you get the same ingress protection on both devices. They're IP68 rated against dust and water submersion to a depth of 6 meters. This year, Apple has increased the screen size by 0.2 inches to a total of 6.3. The iPhone 16 Pro also uses a new version of ceramic shield glass that's meant to be tougher. The bezels are a bit slimmer too. The iPhone 15 Pro has a 6.1-inch OLED panel with last year's ceramic shield protection and a 120Hz refresh rate. The size difference might be an important factor for some people. Besides that though, both of these displays perform great. They support the same HDR standards, have excellent max brightness, and have extra adaptive refresh rates thanks to LTPO tech. Both phones have stereo speakers with good loudness and rich audio quality. Let's listen to compare. Of course, the two iPhone generations have different silicon under the hood. The iPhone 16 Pro has the latest and most powerful Apple A18 Pro chipset. Meanwhile, the iPhone 15 Pro runs on last year's A17 Pro chipset. The new chipset is meant to be more power efficient, and in benchmarks, the new iPhone outscores the older model by around 15 to 20%. The jump in performance probably doesn't mean a lot to the average user though, unless they're into heavy gaming. Both phones feel equally capable. The sustained performance is good on both phones. They did well in our prolonged stress tests, but the new model was able to maintain higher performance in the GPU stability test. Both the new model and last year's model are running Apple's iOS 18, and you get the same software experience. That includes the Apple Intelligence AI-based features, which have already rolled out via software update. But of course, you'll have an extra year of software support for the new model since it came out a year later. The iPhone 16 Pro has a slightly larger battery than the previous model and a more efficient chipset, so it makes sense that it did a better job in our battery life tests. Still, the difference isn't huge, and the 15 Pro is no slouch. The wired charging speed is basically identical between the two phones. A half-hour charge brought us to the same percentage on either one, and a full charge was 5 minutes slower on the new model, perhaps due to the larger capacity. However, the new model has support for 25-watt wireless charging via the new MagSafe charger, compared to 15 watts on last year's model. And now we have the cameras. The iPhone 16 Pro has the same cameras as the Pro Max, a 48-megapixel main cam, a 12-megapixel 5x telephoto zoom, and a new 48-megapixel ultrawide camera. Last year though, the Pro and Pro Max models had differing setups, so the iPhone 15 Pro doesn't have the 5x zoom. On the iPhone 15 Pro, you get the same main camera together with a 12-megapixel 3x telephoto zoom, and its ultrawide camera is 12 megapixels instead of 48. We also have to mention the brand new camera control on this year's model. You can use it to start the camera, to access and change settings on the fly, and of course to shoot photos and take videos, all without having to touch the display. During the day, both phones take basically identical photos with their main cameras. The differences are minimal and may actually come down to shot-to-shot variations rather than true changes in processing. At 3x zoom, the iPhone 15 Pro's dedicated camera does a clearly better job than the 16 Pro, which needs to use digital zoom here. On the other hand, at the 5x zoom level, where you'd expect the 16 Pro to do a lot better, the difference isn't as pronounced. In fact, we're happy with the 15 Pro's 5x shots as well. Moving on to the ultrawide camera. Despite the change in hardware, the images are more or less identical between the two phones. In the dark, both iPhones take excellent photos with their main cameras. Again, there's not a lot to separate the two. The shots could just as well have been taken on the same phone. At 3x zoom at night, the 15 Pro retains the advantage it had during the day, and you'll get sharper and better detailed shots from it. In low light at 5x zoom, the 16 Pro has a bit of an edge, but it's not a dramatic difference. Comparing the ultrawides at night, there's not a clear winner. Depending on the scene, it's a toss-up between the two. The selfie camera hardware hasn't changed between the two generations, but there does appear to be slight differences in rendition between the two phones. And here's a look at 4K selfie videos taken with either phone. The new model supports recording 120 FPS slow-mo in 4K with the main cam, and it also has upgraded microphones for better audio quality. When it comes to the video quality, yet again, it's about the same between the main and the ultra-wide cameras. There is a minor change in the color rendition of the sky, as the new model is a bit more conservative. The iPhone 15 Pro can't quite compete at 5x in video the way it did in stills, so if you want further zoom in your footage, the 16 Pro has the advantage. That being said, the 15 Pro remains strong at 3x zoom. So that's the new iPhone 16 Pro versus last year's iPhone 15 Pro. They're very similar phones. After all, they're only separated by one generation. You get the same design and software experience. The charging speed hasn't changed, and the main and ultra-wide camera's performance is about the same. The new model does have a larger display with slimmer bezels and stronger ceramic shield glass. It has a more powerful chipset and better battery life. MagSafe charging is faster. There's a new camera control key, and you can shoot 120 FPS videos in 4K with the main cam, and 5x zoom videos are better. The iPhone 15 Pro, on the other hand, can provide nearly the same user experience as the new model at a much lower price. Some people might prefer that it's a bit shorter and lighter, and the camera quality of stills and videos is better at 3x zoom. In the end, while the iPhone 16 Pro is the newer and arguably better model, the savings you get with last year's 15 Pro are quite tempting. And especially if you prefer zooming in at 3x rather than 5, it makes sense to go for the 15 Pro instead. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.